Hi and welcome. You've just tuned in to the second panel discussion of the event. We've just covered the topic accelerating innovation while staying compliant. So we had some really interesting speakers that covered this topic from different angles. And with me, I have Anders Johansson from Molnlycke. Thanks for joining. And Daan Hofman from Elekta. And also my colleague, Smita Bhatacharjee. Welcome. So I'll just go straight to the point, more or less. I'll ask both you, Anders, and Daan. We're talking about, the event is about PLM, product lifecycle management, and hopefully how it can accelerate sustainable innovation. But let's take some steps back. And I know you're biased, but I'll try to ask for your unbiased opinion. Do you believe that a PLM system is or should be a core system in an organization? Do you believe a PLM system is necessary to actually accelerate innovation and also be able to manage the regulatory complexity parts of the business? Maybe Anders, what's your opinion?
I would say, Rian, of course I'm biased, but to be honest, I think it is necessary, and especially if you work in a larger company that, I showed a little bit, we have 14 manufacturing sites all over the world. We have some R&D people sitting there. You need to collaborate with people within the manufacturing space and so on. So I think to, utilize your resources, as I talked about, be able to decentralize some activities. I think you need to have some system in place to support you with that. And I think a PLM system is a good tool for it. So absolutely, that's my simple answer.
Thanks, Anders. And Daan?
Yeah, well, I'm not biased, right? I believe a PLM is, of course, the backbone. We have different systems in the organization typically, and if that is done by multiple systems, one system, it doesn't really matter. But PLM is the backbone to provide your product information. And regulatory is very much linked to that, as we have seen. So you can either separate it out, but then it needs deep integration on multiple levels. Or what makes more sense is just make sure that you do it within the PLM system. So as Anders is saying, we have multiple manufacturing sites or business lines, as we call them. And of course, it makes sense to have them all harmonized using the same tooling and have all the information available. If you've seen in my presentation, regulatory is really deeply integrated through the whole chain, starting with your R&D, with the DHF. Then you have, of course, your market authorization, UDI, but it goes further down that. It's your manufacturing with your labeling. It's at the end of the day, it's the service organization and the post-market surveillance that needs to report. So it's the backbone, really.
And also, Dawn and Rian, I think, I've been working with PLM solutions for several years. And I remember when I started, it was regarded as an R&D system. Everyone, as soon as you talked about the PLM system, it was an R&D system. But I think, nowadays that is shifting a little bit because people realize that, you can have benefits, as you said, regulatory. Our regulatory department is heavily involved in the PLM system now. We have started to use the PLM system to support our post-market surveillance, which means that our marketing colleagues also needs to be involved. So it's moving to be a company-wide tool on all functions, which I think is good.
Yeah, no, I completely recognize that as well, Anders. And I must say, we have a software department, so a large portion of what we do is software. And there's the mentality like, Innovia, that's hardware, right? So it's about drawings and stuff, right? Not for software.
No.
We're going to change that. And it's completely clear. It's a mindset. Yeah.
Well, Well, interesting, and what's interesting to hear is just like you mentioned, Anders and Daan, that I mean the different departments are actually being involved now and seeing the benefits. But how and when did you see that, you know, how did they see the benefits, or how did you onboard these I mean the other departments? How do you make them understand the benefits?
I mean, as you saw in my presentation, we spent quite a while with stakeholder management, and I mean, Smita, you were part of our project from the TECHNIA side, and I mean, I can't even count how many workshops and demos and presentations I've done for different departments. But I mean, it is just to try to explain and also to let people actually, and if we would have done something different, to be honest, we should have involved people much earlier to actually work in the system themselves, because I think we did it for different reasons, a little bit late, if you see what I mean. We should have tried to do that earlier, because then I think people will get on board much easily, much more easily than if you just, you know, talk about how good it will be for you. So, but it is stakeholder management, just to explain and show and let people try themselves,
Yeah.
I think.
And I believe it's also a lot around the mindset. I mean, sometimes we are so stuck with the fact that, okay, this is the way that we have to work because that has been the tradition and this has been the convention. And to really come out of that conventional way of thinking, like, okay, maybe SharePoints are not the best solution for this kind of work. For example, in case of regulatory affairs, I mean, I think it's just about breaking the boundaries and trying out new things and exploring the potential of kind of managing that information, not just as a repository, but more the process in a PLM system. So I think it's a lot to do with how people think and how the shift has to happen. Yeah.
But here I think we have a challenge as well. I mean, I totally agree with you, Smita, that, you know, I really, for example, I mean, I see we have started to use this design control workflows in 3D Experience, which I think is super great. But, you know, I really would like to just use that. But then when you talk with some of our regulatory regulators like FDA, or I'm not sure how, you know, how ready they are to accept to not have a document. They always want to see documents when they come. So that's a challenge, I think, not only to change the mindset within the company, but within the whole medical device community a little bit.
True.
That's very interesting, because I'm thinking back at the previous panel discussion where we were discussing about sparking innovation and how we can accelerate and get up to speed more faster, and where we were discussing that collaboration is a very important aspect, not just collaborating internally, but actually externally also. And then looking at, you know, the last year and a half when, you know, being struck by the pandemic, and how actually a collaboration between pharmaceutical companies and the regulators actually work together to actually speed up the whole process. Maybe one can maybe one should use the same approach here then. When, you know, if you want to move away from document based to maybe data driven.
But, you know, Dan, you and I have talked before. I mean, maybe one day we will actually see the paperless office, right?
One day. Yeah. So, I mean, we come from a different journey, right? So you basically started and be able to kind of move everything into the Dassault arena all at once. So we had a journey from 20 years, basically starting with a CAD faulting system, expanded that to engineering change, and now we have a global footprint, except for the software that is on the moment. That's our next challenge. So yeah, I completely see what you're saying. what I see as our biggest challenge is how do we get the different areas, the different stakeholders actually involved? Because everyone is very good in what they're doing in their own little world. But if you talk about engineering change, it says engineering change. But at the end of the day, there's regulatory, there is sales, there is manufacturing. There's so many people involved in that. So we need to make sure that everyone has their own share and it's part of the global process and not only in their own world, basically. So that's what I see as a big challenge, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would like to ask Daan, you a question. I mean, Anders, you have been talking a lot about in your previous session that it's one thing to have a solution. You might have a fantastic solution in place, but if people are not embracing it, then it's of no use, so to say. So this transformation, the change process within the organization for the acceptance of the solution is quite a key, I believe. So, Anders, you have shared that journey, how Molnlycke have actually embraced it. So, Daan, I mean, looking at you, I mean, you have also been into a PLM journey with different solutions from the portfolio. How have you tackled this transformation within the company to actually enable them to use something new?
Yeah, so critical, of course, is that business is driving this. So there's always this, we are a global IT organization, and from an IT perspective, you see things that make sense, right? But at the end of the day, the business, there needs to be a clear sponsor and ownership and the drive from the business. Otherwise, yeah, you will not succeed at the end of the day. So I think that has been part of all the changes that we did. So we did it in let's say, in steps. So we started small and then we expanded and expanded. But every step that we took, we needed to make sure, first of all, there is business ownership and what is the best solution going forward? Is that PLM or maybe other solutions? So that question we needed to ask every time, and then do a proper stakeholder analysis, do proper compare the different options that we can do. Yeah, that's how we did our journey, to be honest.
Right. And Anders, you mentioned that towards the end of your slide that there are some people who are in different staircase, so to say. Some are really embracing it, some are on a learning phase, some are more on an awareness phase. So how is the situation with the users now? Are they embracing the 3D experience solution in reality, or so what's the feeling in Molnlycke?
I would say definitely yes. My team and some of them are maybe on this panel discussions. They know what I talk about. We are quite, swamped with questions and supporting users. So I mean, people are working with the system, and I think they want to, work with it. But of course, we still have. The journey is not over. I mean, we will still need to continue, and especially, I think, as I mentioned, training. We really want to integrate process and tools training into each other, if you see what I mean. So when we have trainings in design control about, the regulations there and how to think, we also want to integrate the tool training, so to say, so you don't separate it. But I would say in general, most people are positive. You always have people, I don't know if you know the model with the 4 rooms of change. You can always fall back to a previous room. So of course, if something happens or you are stressed or your project is not going, I mean, some people fall back. But I think it is a continuous journey all the time, to regardless what system or process you're talking about. So. Yeah.
So I think if you look at Elekta, I think I think we see the similar thing. Everyone is accepted, and of course there's always a range, right? But overall, I think the adoption is very good. But at the same time, I also see people are very busy, and changes. We have so many changes going through the organization right now. So yeah, resource management is important. Change management is really, really critical. So training and really guiding the users through this whole process is tough, but it's absolutely necessary. It's the only way to get through it. Yeah.
But I think one thing that that I think we did really, really good is actually our key user community. So we really try to identify early adopters of the new PLM system and really invite them and engage them. And it's so fun to see, because we use Yammer as, if you know what Yammer is, Microsoft Yammer. So we have that as our platform for the key user community or end user community. And it's so funny because you can see, you know, one evening someone in Thailand in the manufacturing site there is posting a question, and the next morning someone in the US is answering that question. So it's really not only HQ anymore that is supporting. So people are supporting each other, and it can be really interesting discussions, I can tell you. So I think we have really succeeded with the key user community part, and that's why we try to build on that as much as possible.
Yeah, it kind of goes along with your idea around decentralization of responsibility, so that everyone takes ownership of the responsibilities, and HQ is not always having the mandate to drive everything, isn't it?
No, and also, I mean, we are not, I mean, in the past, I know usually it was one team who was responsible for something, and, you know, everyone posted a question to that team, but suddenly that team was maybe away off site, and, you know, it took 2 days to get an answer. So I think by doing this, you always have someone who can answer your questions or give you advice, or so it's actually working quite well, I would say.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the same. We also have a key user community, very active. I see the same thing as you were saying.
Yeah.
And also, we have installed, like, every 3 months we have a service release. So we capture the backlog, so we capture all the feedback that we get, and then we go through the list and say, okay, what do we need to implement for the next service release? And then basically we are planning the one ahead, so not the next one, because the next one is already frozen and will be executed, but then the next one. And that's working really fine, because everyone feels involved, and we can really make the improvements that are needed. So that's good.
Interesting. So I'm very happy to hear that you know the system brings people together, fosters collaboration. So looking at the regulatory complexity part, how do you believe what is needed in order to manage this in a more efficient manner? Is a PLM system enough? What kind of people are needed? What kind of forums are needed? What kind of please share your experiences
So
within this field.
If I may, so what I see is that you're stretching the boundaries, right? So it's not only PLM, it's regulatory PLM, but again, it's basically across all there's post-market surveillance who are at the end of the chain. So everyone is involved, and that makes it challenging to get buy-in and visualization across the whole chain. But it's been a journey to get the regulatory included, as you all know, Rayan. So UDI has been a long journey. We implemented in 2016 a good ID database submission, and that's working fine. But now we also got an external application that is deeply integrated with Innovia, which has to connect it to do the UDI submission. But UDI submission is one, but getting the UDI also completely in the embedded, the traceability, that is another ball game, and that is our challenge at the moment.
I would say from our side, our regulatory affairs department was quite early adopters, actually, and maybe it's person dependent, I don't know, but they were really joining this journey quite early, and I think we have a quite good foundation in place. But of course, we have a lot of legacy that we need to move into the PLM system to get full, how should I say, benefit of all the solutions, and that also goes with all the R&D work. I showed all the different changes we want to do, and we have done it for a lot of products. But of course, we also have a lot of legacy that we need to, work with. And we have said we will do it, case by case a little bit now when we change things, just not to overwhelm. So I think the benefit that we get out of the systems will, of course, increase the more we get, so to say, to the point where we want to be. But I think even my regulatory colleagues are quite happy with the solution we have in place now. And you saw a little bit the regulatory matrix we have. It's a step forward, I think, compared to how we handled it before, where we had SharePoints and Excel spreadsheets. And so, yeah. Yeah,
I'm a little bit jealous. That's we want to move from our Persian carpet into this regulatory matrix. So,
yeah. But now that we are talking about regulatory complexity, I think one of the things that I have to ask you about is MDR. So how do you see the platform supporting you in this transformation?
That was a tough question, Smita, because the transfer to MDR is a beast of its own, to be honest, regardless of PLM or not. So, but I think, it is always, and I would say I would have loved to have our PLM solution in place before, we started. But what happened now was that we actually implemented a new PLM solution in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of transition from MDD to MDR. And that has created some challenges. Smita and Sandra from TECHNIA as well, that, we have had, our product definition is quite dependent on classification, for example, and suddenly you have two different regulations in Europe. So it meant we needed to really separate products that was MDD and products that were MDR certified. And so we have had some challenges, but I think the system has supported us in a good way to at least get there, if you see what I mean. So I can't imagine how it would have been without it.
Yeah, I think same for us. It's a complex beast indeed. So with the UDIMED submission of the UDI, which we are doing right now, that is part of the puzzle, of course. And we will also try to, with the regulatory matrix, we also want to support the IFUs. So we can select, okay, in this country, we need to put the MDD or the MDR manual. So yeah, the system is supporting us greatly, but it's still very challenging, absolutely.
One thing I would like to see in the future, Rian and Smita, that actually is a challenge for us. We are very often, we need to submit a lot of data into, for example, tenders. And that is a challenge for us because, it can be Excel spreadsheets where people ask for 200 different master data attributes that goes on different levels in the bill of material. So, to get some kind of good system support for that, I think would help a lot, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and I think this is something that's not only life sciences specific. I think our other departments are, or customers could be struggling potentially with such kind of scenarios. But we have a lot of different tools and supports that I think we can provide in due course of time to really help you with the generation of consolidated information.
Yeah. Yep.
So
good.
We'll definitely be working towards it.
Sometime after Christmas, then, Smita, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Let's hope for that.
Yeah. Great.
So Anders, question to you then, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Are you using the regulatory matrix that you have today then also to basically block your products from shipment or quoting? Is that something you're using today?
So we do the regulatory release in our PLM system, but then of course that is kind of integrated to the ERP, and then we also have how should I say, two locks. We have the regulatory release, and then we have a sales and marketing release as well. So I mean, the regulatory part must always be, if that's open, that means that you can sell if you want to. If that is kind of locked or withdrawn, I mean, then it doesn't matter if marketing is trying to do. So regulatory is really the one having the master key, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. And translations, how is that coming into the mix?
Translations of IFUs, you mean, or translations?
So basically, you can have a release, for example, for CE, so you can sell in Europe, but you can only ship, for example, to France if the French translation is available as well.
But as you saw, because we talked about that, maybe you could put up the European Union as one country or jurisdiction in the matrix, but that means that if you release for every country. So we actually have each country in the European Union as separate countries, which means that we still need to have that kind of control. I know what you mean, and that's always a challenge. Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting discussions, and thanks a lot for sharing your expertise and your experience. We're unfortunately running out of time, so I think we're going to have to wrap it up more or less. Yeah. And so my take on it, thanks for letting us know that you also see PLM as a core system which enables the management of innovation and product creation, and also managing the regulatory complexity parts of your business. So thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing, and hope to see you all soon again.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.